Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Ask Dave. I am Phillip Jackson, our CIO at Arctic IT, and with me I have our illustrious president, Dave Bailey. So welcome, Dave. Today I wanted to talk to you, Dave. We, make a lot of migrations of people from on-prem solutions, maybe they have file servers, map drives, that kind of thing. But certainly as we have been transitioning to a work from home scenario and we're moving people to the cloud, you kind of get, there's new ways of thinking and new ways of doing things, and maybe the old ways are a little outdated. And so talk to me about enterprise content management, about, what the best way to share files is in a distributed workforce and that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. So we use Teams here at Arctic IT, right? So Microsoft Teams. And I'm constantly asked to differentiate by our clients and even some of our own, team members about, hey, what's the best meeting technology to be using, in this time of working remotely? And it's like, okay, well, you could use Zoom, you could use WebEx, GoToMeeting, right? There's a number of different options. And then, of course, there's Teams. The difference, however, is that when you look at a WebEx, Zoom, GoToMeeting, those are strictly just meeting technologies. Even ourselves, we use GoToWebinar when we host different sessions because it has better capability of inviting, in some cases, over 100 people into a session, and it gives you different controls about the webinar and meeting technology. Yep. But what people have not really realized, and I haven't seen it said too often, is that now your meeting space in the actual meeting, just like we're having right now, that is actually enterprise content.
Yeah.
Right. So people are recording meetings. They are sharing content and meeting externally with customers and partners. And the content of those things and the security of the information that's discussed in those meetings, again, that is enterprise content. So the overall enterprise content strategy, I believe, now needs to include meeting technology, chat, so enterprise chat. So we use Teams to chat back and forth, right? And that's how it's kind of evolved. You have traditional brick and mortar type features of, file folder storage, where I'm putting information. And that's the biggest differentiator, is that Teams is all of those things in one place. And it also couples in OneDrive, SharePoint, and even your email communications as far as where you store comms and that type of stuff. Yeah. So overarchingly, enterprise content has now folded in the meeting component of technology, which is why, I think for that modern workplace, which is really what we're trying to achieve, it's got to be overarching. And that doesn't mean to say I don't enjoy a Zoom meeting once in a while. You and I are on those quite a bit with other folks. Only because of the fact that it lets me keep my Teams console in one place, and I can do the Zoom meeting in another. So I get to use the best of both worlds, and it's kind of functional that way. So.
Yeah. No, it's Teams just brings so much to that. We share files now, and in a traditional way, we would have had to VPN in, and you and I couldn't have the file open at the same time. But now we can have this meeting, and we could be sharing a file and both be in an Excel file at the same time, and it's updated as you update cells and I update cells, and we can rapidly work on something even though we are thousands of miles apart, right? Before we would maybe get in a conference room and bring it up on the screen and try to work on it together, but that's not the way the world works now, and we have that. Talk to me a little bit about identity around that too. You talked about Zoom and GoToMeeting and that kind of stuff, and why Teams for that platform?
Yeah, overall security as well, right? Teams is going to be dependent upon your Microsoft and your domain credential, right? Your authentication and your identity into that subscription-based world. But that security and the properties and policies and things like that we've set up, even governance and things like data loss prevention, have all been established in that back-end administration behind that cloud environment. And it follows me as a user through my interaction in Teams and any of the other components that are tied to it with documents. Even from an email perspective, when you think about security, right? Email and my account in my domain are somewhat synonymous depending on your perspective. And you think about how many times we would be attaching things to emails, firing them back and forth, storing them on a local desktop with V1, V2, V3. Teams has helped us as an organization shrink down the number of documents we have as attachments, because in that Teams console, I have security built around who can come into the team and cannot. So I'm getting a bit of governance, right? That's put into that equation. And I'm also cutting down on all the email traffic about sharing these documents, because I can just say an update in Teams with chat, and it fires an email that says that the content's there without attaching it to the email and sending it around. Huge point.
Great point, because we can have a team and then we add someone, a new partner that we're going to partner with or something like that. We can add them in as a guest. First of all, they're noted as a guest. So I know this person isn't part of Arctic IT. They're a guest and can assign certain permissions. But to your point about not having to email out, now they have access to those files that we had already loaded up there. I don't have to try to catch them up with what's going on. They can see the chat history. They can get caught up on their own time.
Yeah, so it's another layer of secure collaboration, not only inside but outside the organization as well. So ultimately, enterprise content and the concept from a modern workplace have evolved into what Microsoft has developed, I think, is probably the standard for collaboration, and that is Microsoft Teams. It helps us do everything we need to do inside and outside our organization securely, and it helps us manage our content, and we don't have to be as concerned about who's seeing what, how they're getting to it, because we can manage that all in one place.
Yeah, and then I'll make one last point. I know I've been doing this quite a while, and in traditional file server worlds and old things, people would come to me and say, hey, Joey just left the company. Can you find this file? I have no idea where to find it, right? And now we can just kind of search the whole enterprise for that content and come up with it, and it's a big time saver. So
yeah, that's a huge point too. I agree. Finding that information when somebody leaves the organization or change roles. Yeah. The worst thing is like, oh, do you want to police their inbox and go through all the yellow folders that they created for the important stuff they stored somewhere in the U drive? It's like, no, we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So, huge point.
Yeah. So, well, thanks for talking to me today about the modern workplace. I think that we can all agree that doing things different is something we have to keep our mind open to, and this allows us to work differently now.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Got a technology question you need an answer for? Send us an email at connect@arcticit.com, and your question might be featured on the next edition of Ask Dave.